Hi there, it's Stephanie, and this is a two-part series to demonstrate some workarounds for incorporating glossary and information pop-ups into your Articulate-built courses. And the reason why I've done this is because this comes up time and time again where clients want information pop-ups, or they want glossary definitions to appear, or I do, and I want to be able to kind of hide some mandatory information, make it available, but not have to put it up on the screen. So having that mouse over or mouse clicking functionality is quite useful when you're building e-learning courses. So these are workarounds because of the limitations within Articulate, and it's basically a collection of thoughts from folks in the community as well as myself in my testing. So let me show you with this published course. It's sitting on my desktop, and the desktop is, I'm only recording a small portion of my desktop, and I'm mentioning this because there's going to be some stuff popping up, and it might be slightly out of the recording view. Alright, so the first one is called Point, and that basically is the do nothing approach. Here's my example slide, and I have two terms, plus I have an infographic. And all I'm seeing here, perhaps earlier in the course I was told that when I see words that are colorized this way and an arrow, that definitions are available. So there's a glossary up in the Player tab, and when I click Glossary, basically it takes me to the very beginning of the glossary. It takes me right to the top of the glossary. I've been in here before, so you can see it's down here. But at this point I'd have to go S for sufficient and take a look at that, and then maybe R for records and take a look at that definition. So it pops up the glossary, but then I have to dig around and find the terms as the end user. And you know, it's helpful. At least I know that there are some definitions and I can get there, and basically there's no programming involved and there's no development effort involved in this at all. So it's a do nothing, it's a pretty easy approach, but it doesn't give the kind of the one-click access that we're used to when we're seeing rollover or most click content. So the second example is using hyperlinks. So this basically is just an HTML hyperlink that I've done in PowerPoint, and I'm pointing out to a file that pops up the glossary in a separate browser window and takes me to the word that was highlighted, in this case sufficient. And the browser window itself is sitting where it's sitting just because that's where it was last sitting. So it could be of any size and in any position. You can control that though, so I'm using the exact same technique on records. If I click on records, it's actually popping up the glossary in the upper left corner of my desktop and at a very specific size. You can also see that it is taking me to records, and I can see that in one click there's the definition. It's kind of big and it's kind of chunky, but you know, it works. It gets the information to the end user. I could also use this same approach with like an info or a tip graphic. I would probably use a separate interaction of some form that had just the tip information as opposed to putting that within my glossary. But you know, for this screener, that's the way I did it. Okay, so that was the hyperlinking out and to the glossary and looking up a very specific word. The pro here is that you're not duplicating glossary content, you're actually going to the source. And the con is that there is some tweaking that you have to do post-publish to make that work. Okay, the third is the illusion. Now a lot of us are already doing this, so here we are on this slide. Everything visually looks the same as the previous examples, except when you hyperlink, you're actually going to another slide in the presentation. So you're not going to pop up a browser window or go external. And you can see over on the left-hand side, I have a slide for each definition term, as well as the information or the tip. And all I'm doing is hyperlinking to those slides. So I'm duplicating the slide content exactly. I click on sufficient, it takes me to that sufficient slide, dims down the lights, so to speak, pops up the term. When I click X, it takes me back to that very first slide. The same for records, and the same for info. What I like about this is that visually you can be quite creative. You can make your pop-ups look any way you want them to. You can also add sound effects, you can do voiceover, so you have full creative and visual control. The downside is that you're duplicating content. So you have a glossary term in your glossary, and now you also have a glossary term in the slide content itself. So if that term changes in the future, you have two locations where you'd have to edit the information. You're also adding additional slides to the PowerPoint file. So additional slides for every single term. If you have a lot of glossary terms, that's a lot of duplicated slides. You can use your master slides to trim that down a little bit, but you still are dealing with a higher volume of slides. So those are the first three approaches. I'm going to stop now and we'll go through the other two in the next screener.